Want to thank the Free Agent Nation for showing up every Tuesday, every Sunday. Uh, Trying something different here with using my earpods as my monitoring device. It's got a slight delay, so it's a little bit weird to hear myself talking to me, you know, half a second or so later. Um, but we're going to see. I'm just trying to look at something without having my big old headphones on my head for an entire show. But we'll see. I'm being cheap. They actually have in-ear monitors that you can buy, and they work really well. Go over the ear, kind of can go down the back of my shirt or whatever. And I'm just being cheap. So we'll see. We'll see how this feels with one. I have to pop one out already because it's kind of weird with too much noise in my ear. But anyway, what's up, Free Agent Nation? So we are back. STEMI checks. Yeah, they rolling out. Uh, we're going to dig into that a little bit. And the title of this show was Politicians Played You Again. And we're going to dig beyond the stimulus check. I actually want to pull up, I was going to go through this whole tirade, right? This whole tirade of what the politicians were saying before the election and then what happened and that sort of thing. And it was just like, nah, let's talk solutions, right? We know politicians are going to do whatever they can, say whatever they can to be able to retain power. We don't have to belabor that point, right? You do realize that what the Democrats promised you is not what's happening, and then there were even changes on top of what they adjusted it to, right? Some of this has to do with political gamesmanship between the parties. Okay, like it exists, right? But we're going to dig into kind of the specifics there, and we're also going to look at what's in the actual bill. And I figured it would be useful to actually show how to actually read the bill, right? Like it's there, you can find it. So uh, we'll go through that in a little while, and we'll look at how I kind of tend to find these things and use them. Maybe it's a little more techie than is necessary, but we'll see. Uh, we're also going to look at We're going to look at Cuomo. We're going to look at again. Maybe I'm just feeling a little bit a little bit tired of government today, and so we're going to do a little ranting about this whole party aspect. So we're going to dig into this stuff today. So anyway, those of you on YouTube, hit that like, hit that subscribe, share this out. Make sure that you're getting the show out. We have some exciting things coming up. I have some potential interviews that may be landing soon, so I'm really excited about that coming out. And so I'm really looking forward to the growth here, as well as the growth on the new business, entrepreneurship, and technology podcast called Catapulting. I have an exciting interview for that coming up this week as well. Actually, I have two interviews. Really looking forward to both of them. One of them is going to touch on crypto and how that plays into the entrepreneurship landscape. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. So really excited about that. That's coming very soon. So I'll be pubbing that here. You'll be hearing about it on the other channel, on the Catapulting channel. You'll be hearing about this podcast. Like it, hey, it's gonna be some cross pollination happening here. So, all right. The first thing that I wanted to jump in. Let me get my tabs in order here real quick. But the first thing I want to jump into was what's going on with the children at the border, right? And now it's going to be a little not necessarily tongue in cheek in that sense, but I'm poking the bear a little bit here for those of you that are very partisan in the sense that you love your party, right? Now, for 4 years, I got slack from people who, or flack from people who thought I was being a hyper partisan Democrat shill sort of thing, right? And so now that the Democrats are in power and I'm calling them out, now it's a little bit different. It's like, well, I don't know exactly how to attack you. You're attacking the people that I wanted to attack too. I don't, so I always love seeing people have to eat a little bit of crow. And so it's what I'm seeing is it's helping certain people actually shift that mindset, right? Those people who were gung ho Trump and they loved what this particular thing was, whatever it was, pick whatever topic, are having to come to the realization that either he was wrong or Biden is doing the exact same thing as he was. And so now, can they hate on Biden because it's the same, right? Like these sort of things are crossing here. On the flip side, those that were gung ho anti-Trump from the perspective of parties, right? Not from the perspective of he sucks, because we know he did, but from the perspective of a party thing, right? I'm going to bash everything he does. I'm going to make sure that I call this out. And oh my God, this is a humanitarian disaster. They're having to face the facts that Biden has been in power. Today's March the 7th. Been in power almost 3 months, or I guess 2 months. And for those 2 months, I mean, we still have child migrant shelters. And they filled up to 100% despite COVID concern. This article here on Axios. The Centers for Disease Control is allowing shelters handling child migrants who cross the U.S.-Mexico border to expand to a full capacity, abandoning a requirement that they stay near 50% to inhibit the spread of coronavirus, Axios has learned. Here's why it matters. The fact that the country's premier health advisory agency is permitting a change in COVID-19 protocols indicates the scale of the immigration crisis. A draft memo obtained by Axios conceded facilities should plan for and expect to have COVID-19 cases. The document goes on to recommend detailed ways to prevent the spread of the coronavirus in shelters. It encourages operators to continue giving COVID-19 tests to newly arrived children following 14-day quarantine guidelines, wear masks, improve ventilation, and ensure they save room for isolating any child who tests positive, among other actions. While they're at 100%, they have to save room for the sick kids. Right. The memo states that there is, quote unquote, there is no 0% risk scenario given the coronavirus, so, quote unquote, facilities should plan for and expect to have COVID-19 cases, CNN first reported. A spokesperson for HHS, the Health and Human Services, did not immediately respond for comment. I mean, of course not. Why would they respond? Rewind. Let's just say it's November. Or let's go before then. Let's say September. No, too close to the election. Let's say June. Rewind and play this same exact story with Trump being the president. What's your response? How do you play that in your head? Are you mad? Do you say, well, they shouldn't have come here anyway? Which side are you on here? On the issue, not on the political spectrum. What side are you on when it comes to locking kids in these detention centers, quote unquote, locking kids in cages? What side were you on when Trump was the president? Now that this story is happening right now, Are you still on the same side? Are you holding Biden to the same, his feet to the same fire? Is the fire as strong as it was last year? Or is it okay to lock the kids in cages and 100%? Let's just let's go ahead and pack it in as much as possible, right? Let's just pack it in, right? That's fine now, right? We can do that now. But last year we couldn't because Big Bad Orange Man, I mean, he was a tyrant. Like we can't have him out here doing this kind of stuff. No. He's a tyrant. We got to stop him. I mean, that's how it works, right? Right? No, that's not how it works. That's why this channel exists. That's why this little logo here says political free agents, because no matter who is in power, these situations are still about humanity. It's still about humanity. There's no way around it. From the same article here, Driving the News, this memo was drafted on CDC letterhead and set for imminent delivery, said the only available options for housing minors who cross the border without their parents are prolonged stays at the Customs and Border Protection facilities operating as significantly above COVID-19 facilities. The other alternative is increasing capacity at other shelters run by the DHS or Department of HHS, basically, Health and Human Services, above what their own coronavirus protocols allow. So, so we have guidelines, right? Now, I'm old enough to remember when Trump was pressing to go against guidelines, or somebody in the administration pushed to go against CDC guidelines and HHS guidelines. Oh, it was massive news. I sat around to see kind of what was happening with this story, and I mean, I don't watch the news anymore because I mean, it's like me watching a football game and it's a really horrible quarterback playing. I'm yelling at the TV the whole time. So I don't know what the news cycle has necessarily been, but judging by what's going on Twitter, what's been trending, I pay attention to those things. What's been going across my Facebook timeline, pay attention to those because it's what people are talking about. And I'm not seeing the outrage here. I'm just not. And I know I'm on a long rant. This segment has gone over how long it needed to go over. But I hope you're thinking through what I'm talking about here. The person who is in control changed. The situation has not. In fact, it's gotten a little bit worse, but there's no outrage. The CDC says there's assumed higher risk of migrant kids getting the virus at Border Patrol centers. Yep, sorry, YouTube. Scrolling and scrolled you out of view here. It concludes the HHS shelters are the safer option even with increased capacity. The CDC says facilities operated by HHS Office of Refugee Resettlement may temporarily increase capacity to full licensed capacity while implementing and adhering to strict COVID-19 mitigation measures. The memo also spells out the dire problem. As Axios reported, shelters have been getting an average of 321 children per day, up from 47 per day the first week of January, and expect to need 20,000 beds to accommodate an anticipated record number of child migrants. At this time, this is a quote from the memo, at this time, CBP does not have adequate space for physical distancing, quarantine of persons exposed to COVID-19 or isolation of ill or infected persons. As of March 1st, 2021, 4 CBP sectors are over COVID adjusted capacity. Whew. Reading on Sunday, it's hard. It goes on between the lines and kind of summarizes some of those things as well. But in short, we're seeing an increase. I mean, it stated we were seeing 47 per day the first week in January. We're seeing 321 children per day. I've not seen anything about kids in cages. I've not seen anybody freaking out about caravans, right? Like this isn't just the Dems are hypocrites, the Republicans are hypocrites. No, you may be the hypocrite. Were you going crazy about caravans of children coming across the border? Are you still going crazy about it? Were you going crazy about kids in cages? Are you silent now? Right? Like anyway, I could rant all day about this. Um, but Biden has a problem. He has a problem on his hands that he has to solve. He did a bunch of blustering last year where he talked about kids in cages and how inhumane and all this sort of thing. He's been president almost 2 months. If he wanted to fix it, he could have made that a top priority. We've dropped bombs. We now have another COVID stimulus, which we'll be getting into. Kids still in cages. They'll get to it eventually, I guess. Quick update here from Texas. The financial fallout from the Texas deep freeze. This is on Axios by Courtney Brown. Texas has thawed out after the Arctic freeze last month. And mind you, I'm reading this one because it's going to play into where we're going here soon. Texas thawed out after the power crisis, but the financial turmoil from power grid shock is just starting to take shape. This is why it matters. In total, electricity companies are billions of dollars short on the post-storm payments they now owe to the state's grid operator, which is ERCOT. There's no clear path for how they will pay, something being watched closely across the country as extreme weather events become more common. Now, I'm gonna break right there real quick. I was having a conversation with someone, and the whole idea of like whether it's climate control or global warming, right? They change from global warming to climate control. If you live in one, let's say the third coast over here, you're probably a little bit more acutely aware of the increase of hurricanes and the veracity of them that are coming, right? Storms happen. We know August, September is hurricane season, right? If you live here, hurricane season, right? It's become a bit common that this is going to happen every year, right? But we're seeing a decrease in the amount of time between these big events. We had a freeze in 1989 here in Texas that caused a bunch of electrical issues and whatnot. Then we had one in 2011, so 20 years. Now we have one in 2021, 10 years. Are we going to see another massive one in 2026, or is it going to come faster? Are we reducing at a rate of half? We don't know. We don't know. It's just, this is the information. We had a massive storm, and I think '07 here in Houston. Then I think it was 2011 or 2012, another one came in. Then we had one 2016, 2017. So, and then like we missed here in Houston, but then Louisiana and some others along the third coast, they got hit pretty hard last year. Like these powerful storms are increasing along the coast, right? So whether or not you believe in climate, issues, or whether or not you think it's important, they're happening, right? So something has to be done, whether or not you feel like it's a left versus right thing, or whether or not you just care about your grandchildren in the future. All right, so this catch-up quick section, I had to remember where I was. There was a cascading failure of infrastructures in the wake of the statewide cold front, says Josh Rhodes, a research fellow at UT Austin. Weber's at the University of Texas at Austin's Weber Energy Group. Our gas, electricity, and water grids failed. While millions went without power and water, officials are still tallying how many died, which I'm waiting to see what's happening there, because it's not getting coverage, right? The amount of people who died because of this is not getting coverage. People are making it about, all these business things and green energy and all that, but some people died. We're going to find out soon what those numbers look like. One example of the massive money effect, wholesale power prices rose from roughly $50 per megawatt hour to 9,000. As the cost of electric companies rose, resident bills also soared. What's happening? Electricity providers can't pay ERCOT, which operates the state power grid, for the power they use. So ERCOT is now short on what it has to pay power generators. We got some trickle happening here, right? So, in short, people can't pay our power companies. Our power companies can't pay ERCOT. ERCOT can't pay the power generators. We're going somewhere. Wait for it. The domino effect fallout from the massive price spike is still taking shape. Just this week, Brazos Electric Power, the state's oldest and largest power company, couldn't pay $1.8 billion of its ERCOT bill and filed for bankruptcy, the first to come as a direct result of the crisis. Entrust Energy became the second electricity provider to be barred from Texas's power market by ERCOT. It can't pay its bills either. Energy Monger is preparing for the same fate and started offloading customers this week, per Bloomberg. The unpaid bills in ERCOT in total is over $2.2 billion. Heads are starting to roll this week as at the top decision-making bodies. The chair of the state's top energy regulator, Public Utility Council, which oversees ERCOT, is out. So is the head of ERCOT. Between the lines, regulators said today they aren't going to retroactively reprice electricity costs, even though a watchdog said they overcharged companies by as much as $16 billion, the Texas Tribune reported. They overcharged companies by $16 billion, and they're not going to reprice those electricities. They're not going to figure, hey, like, y'all owe us. Run me my money. They want they stimmy too. The worst case scenario, residents on the hook for decades. The cost could be passed along to Texas customers as a surcharge, which is what we covered in a previous episode. But current laws limit how much the utilities can charge you extra per month. With billions of dollars in short pay, you're talking about decades to clean up, Rhodes said. Yeah. All right, so where does this lead us, right? Like, think about it. I mean, just take a second. You're starting to see fallout. People are losing their jobs. Top people are losing their jobs. Companies are going bankrupt. The power generators aren't able to get paid because ERCOT can't get paid, because electric companies can't get paid, because state regulations do not allow them to overcharge or put too much of a surcharge on the electric bills to consumers. So they're looking, as we covered in a past video, to spread this across like 10 years or something. Right? So just charge customers over the next 10 years to be able to recoup those costs. That's a long time. It's a lot of bankruptcies between now and 10 years from now. It's a lot of time where you're in the red. I mean, businesses work on cycles and they have their own employee costs, et cetera, et cetera. Like, they got a lot of things. So what do you think the answer is gonna be here? It's what we call corporate socialism. When businesses fail, what does the government do? The government steps up, gets them a stimmy. It's what they do. It doesn't matter if they messed up because they suck. It doesn't matter. The government steps in and says, oh, auto industry, we got you. Here's a bunch of money. And they do it under the guise of, we're about to save a bunch of auto workers' jobs, right? Oh, thanks. You blew it. You started trading things that didn't have any sort of value really, and you were over leveraged, and you blew it. Oh, okay. Well, we'll just cut a check. We can't let you fail because if you failed, it's going to trickle down to the consumers, and we have to protect the consumers. Sure, go ahead and pay your CEOs millions of dollars in bonuses. And I mean, okay, if you fire them, then give them a golden parachute and, let them walk into the sunset with 10, 20, 30 million dollars that we just handed you in this government stimmy that you just got. Okay, we'll do that. Oh, there's a virus. Okay, there's a virus. It's wreaking havoc. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and put together this paycheck protection program, and we're just going to. It's a loan, but we're going to forgive the loan, right? But we're going to pass out $1,200, to the people. People gonna get their 1,200, but companies, y'all can get millions. Go ahead, get your million. You just have to keep the people employed. But then there's some caveats there, right? Like you don't have to keep them employed indefinitely, right? Because there's some loopholes, and we're gonna forgive the loan. We're gonna forgive it. This is what they do. Like, I mean, the situations I just laid out, and last year we did 2 stimmies. We're doing another one right now. All of them have business money loaded in them. All of them. And big businesses getting this money. And it's not always the little business that's getting it. This stimmy, they have something related to restaurants. Okay. The food industry has been hit hard, right? So they trickle in some of these things that kind of help things because they have broken it, right? They shut down the government. You can agree or disagree. Doesn't matter. The point is, they shut down businesses. The point is the governments came in and said, you cannot operate as a business. People cannot take their own risk. You can't operate as a business. You need to shut down or go to 25% capacity or go to 50% capacity. And so now they're going to spread a little bit of stimmy on there to go ahead and help you out. But in the midst, it's people getting stimmy that don't need stimmy. I'm talking about the businesses. There are businesses getting stimmy that don't need stimmy. So we're talking about 2021, 2020, went back to 2009, 2011-ish or 12-ish. Like I've called out all these years, mind you. Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat. Those have been the presidents. In my voting time, who have passed out boatloads of money to companies. It's exactly what they're going to do when it comes to the Texas power companies. Just watch. They're going to come out and say that they have to take care of this because they're going to do it for us so that we don't get a surcharge. These companies that blew it, they over leveraged, they did whatever they did that put them in this position. Some of them, not saying they're all horrible companies or anything, but if you know business, you know companies in this day and age, they over leverage and they go too far, and then the government helps them, right? So they're not going to let all these companies fail. They're going to say we have to save these companies. We got to save them. It's existential. We got to save them. There's no way we can let them fail. And what do you think they're going to do? Pass out money. That's what they do every single time. I can go out there right now, make all the bad financial decisions, and then I could go knocking on the government door and be like, hey, can I get some help? Like, I kind of messed up. Be like, man, no, go and get out of here. You're in the wrong tax bracket or whatever the case may be, right? That's just the way it is. My business, I could decide to go out there and blow it in my business. That's okay. My business isn't rich enough to get government help. It's not poor enough and it's not rich enough to get government help. It's fascinating. This is America. We've been covering this, so I figured we'd do a quick update. Cuomo faces fresh misconduct allegations from former aides. Now, I read one of these updates from one of his former aides. Now, mind you, I don't know. We don't know what's really shaking out. But based on his apology, he came out and he had this video apology where he basically said, yeah, I never meant to make anybody feel uncomfortable, blah, blah, blah. Which to me was him admitting that he said something. He said some stuff. Something was said. Then the more people start coming out, and the one story, he just kind of started, kind of asking, about one of his aides if they had a boyfriend, and whether or not she liked older men, and like just kind of these probing questions, and kind of talking about how he was lonely and he was looking for companionship. And I was like, oh yeah, no, this dude was shooting his shot. Like, the dude was shooting his shot. I mean, if you've ever tried to run game on a girl or been around somebody that ran game on a girl and you weren't smooth, that's what it was. That was him. That was him shooting his shot. I'm lonely, girl. You ain't got a boyfriend, man. I don't know, but I mean, do you like younger? I mean, you like older man? Yeah. Yeah, like, yeah, I mean, anybody over 23, like, for me, is old enough. I mean, this is what he's doing, right? Like, he's shooting his shot. Like, she felt like she had to get out of there. She, literally, her words were, I believe the governor is trying to have sex with me. The dude was shooting his shot. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I know when somebody's shooting a shot, and he was shooting his shot. So the office of New York Governor Andrew Cuomo was on Saturday. What am I missing here? I'm reading this weirdly. The office of New York Governor Andrew Cuomo was on Saturday facing fresh accusations, Lord, Sunday, hello, of misconduct against his staff, including further allegations of inappropriate behavior against two more women. His office denies the claims. It's important to understand that some of these claims could be false. I get it. Yes, it definitely could be. Driving the news, the Washington Post reported Cuomo allegedly embraced an aide when he led the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is HUD, and that two male staffers who worked for him in the governor's office accused him of routinely berating them with explicit language. Not a far-fetched. The former female aide in the Wash Post report, Karen Hinton, alleges he summoned her to a hotel room after a work event in 2000 and that she pulled away from Cuomo, but he pulled her back towards his body, holding her before she backed away and left the room. Meanwhile, Anna List, who was a policy and operations aide to Cuomo from 2013 to 15, alleged to the Wall Street Journal that he asked her if she had a boyfriend, called her a sweetheart, touched her on the lower back at a reception, and once kissed her hand when she rose from her desk. The big picture, Cuomo is facing mounting criticism over sexual harassment allegations, with three other women leveling complaints against him for his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic in nursing homes. What they're saying, Peter Ajamian, Cuomo's director of communications, said in an email statement that Hinton's claims did not happen and that she is a known antagonist of the governor's who is attempting to take advantage of the moment to score cheap points with made-up allegations from 21 years ago. Oh, 21 years. I didn't realize it was that long ago. I thought she was one of the more recent ones. Responding to List's allegation, Cuomo spokesperson Rich Azzopardi said in an email statement, reporters and photographers have covered the governor for 14 years, watching him kiss men and women posing for pictures. At the public open house mansion reception, there are hundreds of people, and he poses for hundreds of pictures. That's what people do in politics, or that's what people in politics do. In regards to the male staffer's allegations, Cuomo office said in a email, there's a bunch of emails, that New Yorkers had elected him 4 times during the past 14 years, and there's no secret. These are tough jobs, and that's why I say it's plausible. It's plausible that he out here cussing folks out. But we have a top tier team with many employees who have been here for years and many others who have left and returned. The governor is direct with employees if their work is subpar because the people of New York deserve nothing short of excellence. Now, that's some good spin right there. That's some good spin. So it kind of feigns like, like I guess it rings true about him berating people. It's very possible, right? The sexual assault, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what's going on. But it seems like it's very, very plausible that those things are happening, or that something of that to that effect happened, based on not just based on the allegations, but based on what I read into his apology. All right, so today marks the anniversary of Bloody Sunday. If you don't know what Bloody Sunday was, here's a quick story. 56 years ago, black people were just wanting to be treated as humans, have the same rights as everyone else in the country of the free. That's all they wanted. Some black people decided to march across a bridge. The police said, no. They went over there and beat them senseless. Now, obviously, being a little tongue-in-cheek with the the recollection of the events. But it's a little bit of a summary, right? They beat people senseless. They beat them bloody on the Pettis Street Bridge. And that right there was publicized across the airwaves of America. And what that did was wake up a whole bunch of people who used to be like, and mind you can go watch the videos, but they used to say things like, what are you complaining about? You have your freedom. You even have black mayors. You even have black Congress people. You even have black business owners. You have all this stuff. What do you have to complain about? Right? These are some of the things that they were saying back then. The 60s were wrought with violence. You still had the KKK roaming, like all sorts. Like it was wrought with violence. You had riots that were happening. Like people don't realize people see the King stuff, but they don't see the other stuff that was happening, right? And it's interesting that we're so close to that history, yet so far, and the collective knowledge of what was going on then, it's just so minimal. Now, there's a passage in a book. This book is by Kwame Ture, and you may have heard of him as Stokely Carmichael. Oh, and Charles V. Hamilton. Now, the book's title is Black Power, The Politics of Liberation. And the point of bringing this book up, because see, what was being fought for back then, civil rights, were basic human rights, right? Some of them were legal rights, voting, stuff like that, right? The point of the Black Power fist was power to the people. It wasn't black supremacy. We weren't like raising fists and saying blacks are supreme. We are the dominant, quote unquote, species. It wasn't white supremacy, white supremacy's opposite. That wasn't what Black Power was about, right? It was about growing the black community, right? Pushing the black community forward to get them to overcome what was going on. So I want to read a quick part of this. And it relates to what I was just talking about. One of the first things I just wanted to point out, because I thought this was a great quote. This was, they mentioned it in here. Politics Amongst Nations by Hans Morgenthau defined political power as the psychological control over the minds of men. I mean, is there a better way to summarize what I've been talking about this entire episode? It's the psychological control over men. Now, mind you, mankind. Let's make it like that. It's not in a sexist sense. The psychological control over men. That's exactly what these parties are doing. They're just getting psychological control over you. They're trying to say we're the party of X. They're the party of Y. X is right, Y is wrong. They want to kill babies. They want to control women's uteruses, right? Like they are putting us in this vein of not really discussing these things. It's just politics to have control over the mind of men. Now, go back to the first segment. We're talking about the children in cages, kids in cages, those sort of things. The kids in cages situation ramping up to 100% capacity. Now, we saw Governor Abbott come out and say he's going to remove state-based restrictions, meaning there's no longer going to be restrictions on businesses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They can go to 100%. Outrage. Everybody went crazy. You don't have to go to a business that has 100% capacity. Just don't go to the business. If you don't want to go, don't go. Okay. But these kids in cages, they're putting them at 100%, and there's no outrage about forced 100% of 300 plus kids every single day coming across the border and getting put into these facilities. Psychological control. That's what politics is. They have so much psychological control that you're not even recognizing that the exact same thing is happening in two different ways. But one, outrage. The other, none. Or let me say very little. One is an optional. So not the exact same thing. One is optional. The 100% capacity, you can open up completely. It's optional. You can go or don't go. Unless it's your job. I get it. If it's your job, I understand. There's a different argument. I'm with you there. The other one is forcing kids into 100% capacity. The control includes the attempt by the oppressor to have his definitions, his historical descriptions accepted by the oppressed. This was true in Africa, no less than the United States. To black Africans, the word uhuru means freedom, but they had to fight the white colonizers for the right to use the term. The recorded history of this country's dealings with red and black men offers other examples. In the wars between white settlers and the Indians, mind you, he put it in quotes, quote unquote, Indians, a battle won by the cavalry was described as a victory. The Indians' triumph, however, were massacres. The American colonists were not aware of the need to define their acts in their own terms. They labeled their fight against England a revolution. The English attempted to define it by calling it insubordination or riotous. Right? I could go on and on. Fascinating book, fascinating read, because it gives a view into 60 years ago, roughly 50 to 60 years ago. But the point to get here is that how things are referenced and named is important, because that's how they frame the psychological control over you. Kids in cages, right? Kids in cages rings really like solidly, like you can feel it, right? It's like, oh man, kids in a cage? What? Like a dog? Kids in a cage? What? But then if just tweak it just enough to where it's no longer kids in cages. They tweak it just enough to where the verbiage is CDC lets child migrant shelters fill to 100%. If they tweak the verbiage just enough, they can evoke an emotion or they can remove such an emotion. They can damper the emotion. It's important. It's so important. So important to pay attention to these things. This is why I come here twice a week. That's why I do it. Because it's once you have that awakening and recognition that this is what they're doing, they're playing you. They're literally playing you. You can see these things a lot easier, right? So anyway, we're running out of time here. Let me get through this segment here. Biden to sign voting rights order to mark Bloody Sunday anniversary. Now, here's my issue with this. Right here. Biden will sign an executive order today on the 56th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, meant to promote voting rights, according to an administration official. The executive order comes as Democrats face an uphill battle to pass a sweeping election bill meant in part to combat a growing number of proposals introduced by Republicans at the state level that would restrict voter access. While Biden's executive authority does not extend to overturning states' law, the order allows the president to signal his support for expanding voter rights by the way of the bully pulpit. So bully pulpit just means basically executive order. You're the biggest dog in the country by power, so that's why it's considered bully pulpit. So this is my issue. Actually, let me show what the executive order is to include first. So these are directives that will be in there. It calls for a revamp of vote.gov, the government's voting information website, within 200 days. That's good. I can appreciate that. That's going to stick and stay for now. The order directs the Department of Defense to make it easier for active duty military and voters living abroad to cast their ballots. All right. Depends on what the specifics are there, but reasonable. It calls for a review of voting practices and how they affect people with disabilities. I mean, we kind of have that. Okay, but you want to do a review. All right, is what it is. It also creates a steering committee on Native American voting rights. All right, cool. I'm good with making sure that their rights are retained and accessible. So Biden said every eligible voter should be able to vote and have it counted. If you have the best ideas, you have nothing to hide. Let more people vote. Right. Here's the problem. The next president that comes in can just say, get out of here. The website, the vote.gov, they could just say, let's take this part out. Get that out of here. Let's just change it. Right. That's when Trump came in. There were certain things that were listed on the whitehouse.gov site. Got rid of them. Right? They make it their own. There were certain things listed on other government sites. Get rid of it. That's what happens. This executive order, I mean, he's creating you want to review the voting practices on how it affects disabled people, directs the Department of Defense to make it easier for people to vote, right? Like the next person that comes in could just be like, nah, Department of Defense, oh, that was too much. Get rid of that. We saw it for 4 years. That's what the Trump admin was doing. They were like, oh, Obama did it. Get rid of it. That's the problem with executive order, right? That's the problem. When you go by executive order, it's a temporary salve. You put a little Band-Aid on, rub some raw meat on a wound, whatever. Like, it's a temporary salve. It's not going to fix anything. If you want to fix it, make it law. Go through Congress, present some bills, get some things up there to require it. But then even beyond that, if the states are doing it, Like, what are you going to do? These states are out here trying to nix voting access and limit it as much as they can, and specifically these Republican states, because of the simple premise that when people vote, they lose. So make it tougher, right? This is the ebbs and the flow. This is why you start hearing people using the verbiage, defining the terms about all this sort of stuff like voter fraud and blah, blah, blah. They don't want to talk about the facts of it. They don't. So as long as he's going to basically use executive order, it's temporary. It's not progress. It's temporary. We need more. Biden says $1,400 stimulus payments can start going out this month. So they passed a stimulus bill. We're way beyond where I wanted to start digging into the stimulus bill. We're towards the end of the show, so we may run over, but stick with me here for a little bit. President Biden said Saturday that the Senate passage of his $1.9 trillion COVID relief package means the $1,400 direct payments for most Americans can begin going out later this month. If you are old enough to remember when they got elected on $2,000 in stimulus payments, meaning if you were alive 3 months ago, then this kind of sounds a little bit odd. Math is hard. So they basically campaigned on $2,000 stimulus checks. Up until November, Biden gets elected, all these other people get elected, blah, blah, blah. Then we get into the Georgia runoff, and you see them in Georgia, and they're like, hey, we're going to get them $2,000 checks out immediately. Let me see, it's March. So not immediately-ish, right? Then those $2,000 were like, well, you know, we did a stimulus in December for $600. So 2,000 minus 600, 1,400. Okay, we met our pledge. We said we get you 2,000. You didn't get anybody 2,000. That was a Republican-controlled Congress or Senate, excuse me. Democratic-controlled House, Republican-controlled presidency. That's who got the 600. Your Congress and presidency are handing out 1,400. Now, the rest of what's being applied here. So, driving the news. The Senate voted 50 to 49 Saturday to approve the sweeping legislation. The House is expected to pass the Senate's version of the bill next week before it heads to Biden's desk for signature. The big picture. As part of the legislation, individuals who make less than $7,500 or heads of households who make up to $112,000 will qualify for the $1,400 payments. Couples who make less than $150,000 will get $2,800. Individuals who make between $75,000 and $80,000 and couples who make between $150,000 and $160,000 will receive a reduced payment. Parents who qualify will get an additional $1,400 for every child claimed on their most recent tax returns. Right? So if you don't know, come tax time, a bunch of people with kids that don't have income find people without kids, or they could have kids too, and they let other people claim their kids, and then they split the tax income. If you don't know that happens, it happens every single year. So you can't play that game with the stimmy. It's based on last year's. But if you played the game last year and claimed somebody else's kids, that counts for you. So if you let somebody claim your kids, you might want to go ahead and get some of that extra stimmy money because they about to get it. You not, they are. So if you didn't claim your kids, somebody else did, they about to get your stimmy. That's what's about to happen. It's hilarious because I just know too many people that do that. So what's he saying? Everything that is in this package is designed to relieve the suffering and meet the most urgent needs of the nation and put us in a better position to prevail, Biden said Saturday. The plan will get checks out the door starting this month to the American people who so desperately need the help. The resources in this plan will be used to expand and speed up manufacturing and distribution of vaccines, which is good, so we can get every single American vaccinated sooner rather than later. I promise the American people that help is on the way. Today, I can say we've taken one more giant step forward in delivering on that promise. The bottom line, this puts this plan puts us on a path to beating the virus. This plan gives those families who are struggling the most, the help and breathing room to get through this moment. This plan gives small businesses in this country a fighting chance to survive. Now, I'm of the mind because I used to not be, but I'm now of the mind where I'm not tripping on taking government money. Not at all. They're going to keep doing this stuff over and over and over. They are on the take left and right. You might as well get it. They give it to you, get it. If you don't need it, buy buy Bitcoin, buy Cardano. This is not financial advice. You do whatever you want to do your own research. But if you don't need it, put it to use for whatever. Blow it. It doesn't matter. What they want you to do is spend it. That's what they want. They want you to really go out, party, blow it, buy something, whatever. That's what they want you to do, right? If you put in the stock market, that's quote unquote fueling the economy sort of thing, right? It's a cyclical thing, right? You put it in the stock market, which helps fuel the economy, which helps keep the American machine rolling, quote unquote. So if you're getting it, do as you wish, right? Plenty of people are going to be out here telling you what you should and what you shouldn't do, or you taking this money, whatever. Get the money. Get the money and do whatever you need to do. If you have needs, take care of those needs, right? That's the only thing I would say. Take care of those needs. If you're unemployed, and like they're extending unemployment as well, which I'll read here briefly. If you're unemployed, make sure that you're preparing for the downtime, right? Be ready for come September 6th when this ends. Be ready for that moment. Like, don't just go out and hit the casino and put it all on black, right? Like, be prepared for the moment when they stop handing out money, because they will eventually. But just be ready, essentially, is the point. If you're a business and you're getting some of this stimulus money, I highly suggest you do right by your people. If you don't need it, pay some bonuses. Help some people out. Donate it. Buy Bitcoin. I don't care. They are going to do everything that they can to enrich themselves. You might as well just take them for a ride while you can. I've gotten to the point where I don't care about any of this conversation about capitalism versus socialism and this sort of thing. Man, I'm looking for solutions. Now, I was hoping we'd dig into some of those before the end of the day, but running out of time. I ranted too much, but that's all right, because every now and then there's need for a good rant. I'm gonna pull up this one last thing. This is the actual text for what's coming for unemployment, and so I'll leave the link in the description. It'll be on the podcast as well as on YouTube, so you can go in and you can actually read what's going on here. All of this information is out here. All the stuff that you want to see, if you want to see, it's right here, congress.gov. You can do a simple search. Let me scroll up here so you can see a simple search for COVID, right? A lot of times you hear in the news, they'll talk about it by HR something, right? So you can do HR, put the number in, and you can come up with it. They come up with these little catchy names for it. You can search for it that way. You can get alerts on it. You can actually even see the votes. So like when I'm having conversations with people and we're talking about who voted for what and when and all that, like I'm looking at this site and I'm pulling up who voted, who didn't, who said what. what actually happened with this bill. It helps with to provide like historical context. But you can see in here all the things that are actually happening. And some of the stuff you may agree with, some of the stuff you may not. I didn't even see here something with Howard University. Looks like there may be 35 million. Here's a National Institute for the Deaf, Institute of Educational Services, something about 100 million. Like, you can just read through this and you can see exactly what they're about to do. It's boring. It's dry. I get it. But if you're out there complaining about what they're doing, it may be good for you to read the actual text, not a CNN article, not a Fox article, not Tucker Carlson. You may want to just read the text. They're telling you this is amazing and perfect and it's going to help a lot of people. You may want to see the breakdown. How much is going to businesses? How much is going to people? It's useful. It's useful to actually read that information. So I highly suggest do your own research. If you're getting money, again, take care of yourself. Take care of your people. Set yourself up as best you can for the downtime, because the downtime's coming. We're not even sure they're not going to lock us down again. We don't know. They don't know. Anyway, this is Political Free Agents. Check us out on YouTube. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Smash the like button. Get this thing out. Help share this message. We have a tranche of video clips that have been cut up. I can't even review them all. Our video editor has been killing it. Shouts out to Al. He's been killing it. We're about to start putting up all these smaller clips, and you'll be able to just catch these clips and share those out and help get the message out. But let's get off this. Let's get off of this idea that the government is going to, or these politicians are going to do what they say they're going to do. There's always going to be tweaks because they don't have the power that they actually think they do. All they're going to do is try to define things and evoke your emotions and get you to provide them with the political power yet again for another cycle. Let's change the game. Next episode, I'm coming to you with some things on the answers on how to fight these political powers. It's going to be easy, but it's also going to be difficult. We can get through it. We're PFA and we're out. Catch you on Tuesday.